welcome to this, going to be hopefully an interesting discussion on HR tech. But I'd like to first start with a question. How satisfied are you, or all of you, with HR tech in your organization? If you're satisfied with what you have, put up your hands for the yes. One, just one. Two people are satisfied. And the reason for this question is also to figure out who's listening to us. So who's dissatisfied with the state of HR tech in your organization today? Put your hands up, please. Okay, a majority have put their hands up. So the world of HR tech has changed dramatically in India. When I started my career about 33 years ago, my HR solution was Lotus 123, and the big upgrade was to Microsoft Excel. And things like computer rooms where you took your shoes off before you entered were the norm. Things have changed dramatically, and particularly the pandemic has, in my view, also driven a further need for change, because connecting with employees in a remote work environment, measuring engagement when you don't see the person through a system, and understanding culture. But the focus has been, probably rightly, first on a lot of back-end processing. So payroll systems were very popular. Employee grievance handling or transactions were very popular. And we're now moving towards the options that we have today of either standalone systems for a particular application or end-to-end HR solutions integrated with the ERP of the whole organization. So we've got a lot of choices today. And what I hope to do with my colleagues here on the panel today is understand the experience and the journey and what we need to do differently to get the best out of HR tech, and particularly enhance productivity in a virtual and digital age. So I'm going to start by asking my panel here, what has your HR tech journey been like?
So we are on a tech platform. We are in a event which is all about tech. I think this is what we were talking before we started the panel. It's very important to first be very, very clear that we are not using the term automation, digitization, and tech as interchangeable. They're completely different, right? It also depends on what is the maturity level of that organization with respect to where they are on their people function or HR journey, and then look at how tech is enabling them into that, right? I work for Marsh McLennan, which is from broking to consulting to reinsurance business to high-end wealth advisory. For our colleagues, HR platform is not just about a tool to really help them look at the hiring needs or the performance management. It's about how do we really enable the colleagues to collaborate, to come together, to partner with each other, right? So a lot of examples on that, but one example which really is an important piece, and this is where we are on the journey. Like many of the companies, we have gone to the PeopleSoft to a Workday or a Workday to a different journey. We've looked at a lot of work on how do we simplify the hiring, the talent attraction process. But one area where we're really trying to focus on is getting to understand how can we create a very robust, real-time, collaborative tool that can help us use the tacit knowledge that exists in the organization, and how do we use it to really create more value for colleagues. That's what is the key differentiator on where we are on the journey. We're still learning, we're still evolving, but that's, Kumar, one of the examples that's very, very important to us as an organization right now.
Thank you, JASPREET. Preeti, what is your HR journey about?
Well, the journey has been fantastic, and every year we're just trying to ensure that somewhere we could amalgamate the technology with our HR solutions. But maybe when Jaspreet spoke about a few little things, I'd like to speak something about on the talent acquisition part, right? While I speak about Airtel, we hire at both the spectrums. Niche, I was just speaking to Ashish. When we talk about 5G and the newer technologies where the demand and supply is, I think, completely disrupted, and hence you have to be very careful when you pick up those. But on the other spectrum, we have mass role hiring, right? When I talk about engineers or my field forces, I'm almost recruiting like 1,000, 2,000 odd people per month. And to do that, of course, I can't go manual, right? And hence, as a solution, we were trying to come up with certain things which could help me identify the right kind of people. Of course, we had many choices in the market, but when I speak about technology in the TA space, we actually wanted a solution which could actually help us identify people with the right skill sets who could, maybe if not 100% accurate, at least the accuracy is about 60 to 70% out there, so that the filter is there, right? So rather than interviewing about 1,000, 2,000 odd people, I just need to interview about 500, 600 people, and that tool can help me identify who those top people are. So what we did was we identified the key competencies which make a performer a good performer as compared to a bad performer, then map those competencies with what the tool could identify. Once you've done that, then put up a mechanism on how seamless the flow could be, right from where a person could apply. The tool would help us identify those skill sets and will give us a filtered population. And then that filtered population can come and meet us up, and then we could have the smaller, finer nuances being identified. So I would say in that particular space, we've been pretty successful in the last 4-5 months. The tool is working absolutely fine. It's one of the startups that we experimented with, but I would say an extremely good experiment. So that is where I would say, Kumar, that I think somewhere you need to take a plunge and see what the technologies are and how you could use the technology to your advantage. So I would say from that perspective on a TA, we have been extremely successful.
So just a follow-up question on that.
Yeah.
When you redesigned the system for talent acquisition, what changed about your processes?
So I would say first, the acceptance of the technology has to be very, very important. Imagine my area manager is sitting in extreme corner of Kerala, right? So they should identify what is the change that we are trying to bring into the system and how that change will help him or her in the job. I think that was the most important part of the entire process. We did multiple rounds of trainings for all these people in the field, in the corporate office, to tell them that technology will always be an enabler and not the other way around. Once we had done that, I think it took a good 2 months for people to accept that change. Once that was there, we started changing smaller processes. Now those processes could be forms, the way the flow of information will happen. Once you have the filtered pool on how will be the interaction points, so that it's like 60% done, right? But the rest 40% is also up to you. If you do not give that seamless experience to a candidate for that balance 40%, it's like a lost activity, right? So then train those people up on, once the person is filtered through the tool and comes to you, how soon the onboarding can be. So what we are now trying to do is an automated onboarding also. And then once you come in and join on day one, everything is automated for you. So what JASPREET said, right? A mixture of automating partially, but also ensuring that you bring in the right technology to do a seamless experience for an employee.
Fascinating journey. And it looks like the systems really helped you make your work much simpler and easier.
I would say it is like 50% of the job done. Otherwise, it was a hell lot of things, doing and identifying every single person manually and then rolling out the offers centrally from the corporate office. And you don't know whether you are hiring the right person sitting in one corner or not. At least now you know, you can see the person, you can interact with the person. And I think because it's a scientific way of identifying people, for sure, there is a belief that we are 70% out there.
Thanks. So Pooja, a different tack for you altogether. What do you think is the biggest opportunity today in the HR tech space to help support HR processes? Where is there a gap?
Awesome. So I get the toughest one. Anyhow, I think 2 things from my perspective would be, whenever we talk about HR tech, I think the 2 questions we need to look at ourselves in the organization is, what problem are we solving and what impact is it going to make? I think there are multitude of systems and tools available in the market today. Like, Preeti mentioned that it's about talent acquisition and reducing the effort that goes into the hiring mechanism. or sort of simplifying experiences and bringing communities together. I guess the one thing that I still sort of haven't cracked the code, or probably we're still in that journey, is a lesson that we've learned through the pandemic is engagement in a virtual environment. And while technology does a lot of it to bring things together, it still does not engage talent. To a certain extent, it brings activity, it brings tasks, it brings results, but it does not bring immense level of connection, belongingness within the organization. And how do you crack the code on those finer attributes of employee engagement in an organization is what probably HR tech is still going to sort of evolve through the journey. But I guess it's a combination of, a human with the technology. I can give you a couple of examples, and I think you, Preeti, you were alluding to the fact on engagement before we started the session. And I think that part is extremely important. So currently I'm with OLX Group, and I'm managing the OLX Autos business unit. We're spread across like 11 countries today. Have around over 7,000 plus people. But our recognition programs are very democratized for localized markets. But how do you build that culture of recognition, culture of values that you really would want to bring back in the virtual environment? That's a tougher challenge. So we came up with an idea called Grand Prix. And very common sort of a recognition program. You do something and you'll get recognized and there'll be a voting pattern and things like that. Yeah, we did all of that. But I think the one thing that we realized is people still weren't involved on who the winners were. And how do you bring that engagement? And we sort of just experimented one day on one of our video Zoom platforms is, we will not tell the names of people who are winners. We will just put numbers up there. And we will get live voting from the audience to say, whichever number gets the maximum vote, we'll turn the page and say whose the name is, and that person's a winner, because we assume that everybody is a winner in that list who's been able to come to a global platform. So everyone gets recognition. There's one person who has a better luck because of a voting pattern. And so everyone got engaged. So we had over, I think, 3,000 people vote on the video platform. And we did the voting, and then through that, once somebody won in the US, once somebody won in Turkey, and that sort of became like an aspirational or look forward sort of an all hands activity, which used to be a dry activity all the way through. And I think those are some things that we have to start becoming more creative about as to how do you balance technology with the human connection, but don't let lose the feeling of belongingness with the organization. In this remote environment, what's also happened is we personally feel that many times our employees could consider us as an icon on the desktop, and tomorrow they could download us and they could sort of offload us from that desktop. And how do you get to a point wherein we want to be virtual, we're not going to be in that same world that we were before, but at the same time, there has to be the umbilical cord that joins an employee and the organization. So I guess those are some things that tech still would need to be creative around.
Thanks, Pooja. And you raised a fascinating lead for the next question on what's happening to the dehumanizing the HR manager as well. So this is an anecdotal story of artificial intelligence in a bank in a HR system, where an employee asked the bot, I need an experience letter to apply for a loan. So I need my service certificate. The bot replied with a link to how to resign and the exit process of the company. So over time, this can only get better. But like the point that Pooja raised, that at a point in time, are we heading to a destination where we are just an icon on the desktop? Is HR being dehumanized and being automated? Are our jobs at risk?
But let me give you a flavor, and I don't know there are folks from Infido over here or not, but we also deploy Amber for Employee Engagement Connect, because now we've spread by scale, and it's practically impossible for me to deploy an HR person in every location, because that really doesn't work, because there's a scale, and then you're doing efficiency management and XYZ things that come with the package. But what that really does is that helps me also take out a lot of biases from the ecosystem, because we're all humans at the end of the day. And as HR business partners, we also have our own biases. And we know at any point in time, a human being lives with over 150 biases. All right? So it's practically impossible to decouple the two. But what tech can do with its evolution and with growth of machine learning, with its own understanding of sentiment analysis, I think it can bring in more value to the table with information. And then, it's in the hands of us as human beings, how do we synthesize that and take action over it? So I guess those are some things like, we will have to go through the journey of figuring out what problem are we trying to solve. If I'm trying to solve a problem at scale, then automation is the point that I would like to look at, what's repeatable, what's not, and how can I automate, right? But if I am trying to solve for also removing some bias, I'm trying to solve for efficiency, I'm trying to solve for repeatable work, right? And then what that can bring to the table. Or I'm just trying to basically improve an experience that did not exist in the past. At OLX, we have the highest culture of trust as compared to great places to work. And when we look at that data, it looks like, okay, we are right up there on trust, but our processes suck at the end of the day. So what are we not doing right? So it's not like our employees are feeling bad about it, but we ourselves know that we could elevate that experience. So you take baby steps of what experiences you could elevate and what problems you could solve year on year by knowing, where you can invest your energies at the end of the day.
Thanks, Pooja. Jaspreet.
I'll build on to the example that Preeti gave, and right. I don't know how many talent acquisition people here, but earlier the problem was how do we get the best talent from the market, source it in the best possible manner, look at the cost, look at the commerciality, and then look at how do we really have a fantastic onboarding experience. That was a problem statement. A lot of companies started solving that by automation, digitization. Then the problem statement started coming is, we have something known as no-shows, especially at this time. How do you really take care of that? Then the problem came in, we have early attrition, 30 days, right? Then how do you really enable these guys over the 30, 60, 90, 120 days to start performing? Now, for 4 different problems, if we have 4 different tech solutions, you are complicating the model. So how do we really look at tech enabling the journey where you start thinking from the whole build versus buy, look at the commerciality of that, look at how do we really get in the right talent, source it through an automated channel, as Preeti was talking about, get the people in, get them to start performing in the right manner so they are productive from the first day, first week, handhold them for the 30, 60, 90 days that they get acculturized, they get to understand the organization, they start performing, and it may include elements of skill, culture, onboarding, multiple aspects. Now just imagine if we are able to put all this together in one tech solution for business, you've cracked the problem. Right? And I think that's what is changing today.
So do you think it's a realistic expectation that you'll have one-stop solution to crack all the problems? What's, Preeti, your view? Or Pooja?
So I think that is the point which is most important, right? What we are trying to do is, today we have a problem, we start working on it. It can be a build or it can be a buy, right? In today's scenario, buy is easier than build, because once you start building, right, then you start struggling on integrating amongst multiple other things. But I think that's the most important part. I think we as HR leaders need to look at the overall problem in a holistic way. I should not buy or build a system which tomorrow or a year later almost looks like an obsolete solution for me. Right? Whenever you make a decision of a build or a buy, you should at least look at a 2 to 3 years horizon from now on, and then ensure that somewhere all the subsystems could speak to each other. What's happening today is I build up a recruitment platform. Tomorrow I have a performance platform. The two do not speak to each other. So somebody who gets onboarded on a particular system, the system does not speak to a performance management system, and hence every time you upload a different data altogether on all different platforms, and then they do not speak to each other. How are we helping ourselves? I think Not at all. It's just a simple automation that we're trying to do. And hence, the point that Jaspreet just brought up is the most important part, to take a step back, look at what do you want to achieve, what are the available systems that you have currently, what is available in the market, and then pick up a solution which suits you the best. Not today, but at least 2 years hence.
So just with you,
Sorry, I totally agree on that 2 year hence timeline, because I think technology has such a short shelf life nowadays. It's tough to be able to have a very long-term horizon on how experiences could stabilize in the same technology ecosystem. And I think just, you mentioned very rightly, Jaspreet, that we should look at the same technology, but the only sort of submission I would have to that point is that today I think it is practically difficult to expect one single vendor to give you the whole suite, because of only a few reasons, that there are different problems that arise at different points in time of a maturity life cycle of an organization, and someone cracks a code somewhere which becomes a scalable model for someone, and then it becomes like a norm for organizations to adapt. I think there are two elements over here that we need to be very careful of. Is one, that our audience has also changed. Everyone has relatively become more digital savvy. It's not that we're not. I think the thing that we need to solve for, and maybe I'm going into my conversations of the CTO and the IT heads that I've done so far when we've done technology integration, is your ID access management system the common one? Like the input to the system, the identity access management system is the same. If that is the same, then it's like an iPhone that I'm, or a Android phone that I'm handling, because I can have multiple apps. But my entry point is the same, my exit point is the same, my data is housed as the same data lake layer below that. So then whatever you put on top of it is an exceptional experience. And if anything becomes obsolete, you take that out and you put something in. So there has to be a very seamless API integration with the products that keep coming in from the market and what you can integrate. Because many a times when we take these HRI systems, they become, and I use a lack of a better word, they become those big elephants in the room that we are unable to get off. But also they are the most stable and the most reliable on the planet. So then how do you infuse innovation with stability is actually where you need to crack the right balance and then bring in the right HR tech experience. So
thanks, Fuja. So just with the question to you, considering that what we're hearing today is HR tech still needs to improve a lot. There are opportunities, there are good systems there, but the maturity still has to be enhanced. If you're a HR leader, and many HR leaders are very comfortable with transactions, doing the transactions, which are now getting automated, how can you help a HR leader decide what needs to be changed in the systems? How does he prioritize the journey?
And Kumar, that's a very pertinent point for most of the HR practitioners to think about. What I spoke about earlier, and what Radhika said, it depends on the organization where they are on the maturity level in terms of what they're trying to address, what they're trying to solve for. So I'm not I call myself a technology immigrant rather than a digital native, right? We have 10,000 colleagues in India, in Marsh McLennan. 95% of them are Gen Zs and Gen Ys, right? So I can't design a tech solution for my colleagues thinking I'm solving for them. So I have to be extremely mindful of what are we trying to do and what is the value that we are trying to get, right? We address automation and digitization separately, which means bottom of the pyramid, transactional, operational, all those pieces get taken care of. That's the first part, right? The second part is, how do you really drive the aspects of value? Now, value can be belongingness. How do you connect? So you, Puja, you're talking about desktop. We keep saying colleagues today look at an organization through a laptop lens. I've got an HP laptop versus this, because many of them have not come to office in the last 1.5, 2 years, right? So how do you really create that particular connect, the community, the engagement with them? That's the first part. Immense amount of data available with us. on an average, and I'm sure many of the HR practitioners have been talking about it, one of the biggest things that everybody's talking about is retention and attrition. There is tons of data available with us on attrition, tons of data. The question is, what are we doing with that? How are we leveraging that in the best possible manner to then design a solution that works differently? One of the reasons why colleagues are leaving across is they have more and better opportunities to learn, right? Money is a key driver. I'm not going to take away from that. But as an organization, are you providing that opportunity? Are you able to use that tech? So going back to your question, Kumar, 2-3 things that can really make a difference. One, you have a huge set of opportunity within the organization to help people grow, rotate, develop. Can your tech platform enable that? Right? Can you get a construct of what all is available within the organization? So we launched something known as a skill pool or a skill marketplace within the organization, where today at a click of a button, I know how many chartered accountants, how many techies, how many people have done a particular work experience which they're not doing today. Can I tap into that? That's a knowledge that is very, very helpful for me. That's one. Two, people who we have been hiring or people who have been losing. Can we use that information to then design a solution that really works for us? Right? We are at that journey right now where we are trying to use these data point and then design a tech solution to really help. And then probably the last point, Kumar, is again what we were talking in the morning. Earlier we used to design a solution keeping in mind that this is HR deliverable, so let me look at the best product or a process to deliver it. Today it's not about that. Today it is about what is the ask of a business, what is the ask of a colleague, keeping business and colleague at the center. How can I design a tech ecosystem around it that can enable the transition? I think that's what is the change that we really need to look at.
Thank you. So before we move to the audience for questions, one last question to the panel here. Jaspreet, you spoke about culture, values, belonging. So let's listen to the two ladies here. How can you use HR tech to enhance company culture, particularly in a hybrid work arrangement?
I think if we were to ask this question a year back, it will be more relevant. I think all of us have already transitioned to a time, right, where we've been using this technology to somewhere hold on to the culture of the organization, bring a connect between people. I don't think the way we use Zoom calls to connect to people is something that we were doing 2 years back. We couldn't understand the world, right? Especially if I talk about the area where I work, the telco space. I think if you were to tell someone that I'll work from home was never ever a heard of solution, right? People would laugh, what? How can you work from home, right? But today when we sit, I think people have not been coming to offices for days together, and we are absolutely fine with it, because somewhere we've transitioned to a mechanism where we've learned that nothing stops by you being at home. A hybrid model works perfectly fine. I think I'll just take a moment here and also share, right? We even built up forces now where we thought that there was an untapped talent lying in some, tier 2, tier 3 towns, which otherwise for any reason could not come and join bigger corporates, right? We've built up absolutely remote working units for the diversity piece. And yesterday we were having a chat, why do we give this opportunity only to the female workforce? Why not have a remote working unit for the men as well? And we have systems, processes in place to ensure that they feel just as connected as we are sitting out of office. So I think the change has already happened. It's just that we are building on it day by day. So if I were to be an employee and you were to be somebody working from home, I think we will just enjoy all the facilities, the same level of communication, and hence nothing impacts. Only that I think I do have to work a notch higher to ensure that I connect with you and ensure that you are equally engaged as I am. And I think we are building up enough programs to keep the engagement level of such workforce as high as they were to be in the office. So I think the shift has already happened. It's just that we have to build up on it day by day.
Thanks, Preeti. Pooja, your thoughts?
Well, I think for us it has been relatively a little tough in terms of building the connections, because we've also had blue and gray collar workforce and there's been churn, and then you have the product and tech workforce, and that also has seen a tremendous churn in the last 2 years, and I don't think any company has been devoid of that sort of an experience. So I guess building that connection, belongingness, and a lot of that, we did have to think of necessity as the mother of invention. And what that does to you is it pushes you back to think that hybrid setups are great, but what works and what doesn't work in a hybrid setup? Simple things that if 3 people are on video and 4 people sitting in a room, that is a hybrid setup, but it doesn't really work. Right? So when you're delivering to output and results, you could be in a hybrid setup. But if you're in a workshop and sitting like that, it's really tough to engage through with, let's say, 10 people together. So what we said is we created some rules and engagements of hybrid setup is if there's a workshop, you either do it full on video or you do it full in the workplace. But don't do it half and half, because then people are not able to voice. And then what happens is there is this element or gap of inclusivity that comes in, because folks on the video are not able to contribute as much. And that really becomes a challenge of share of voice. So how do you really bring the culture together, enable people that we are creating some of these ecosystem rules of engagement? They can evolve over a period of time as we keep getting comfortable with it. But for now, I think to enable a better conversation, this is how we will operate. Plus, I think it's also important to have a human-to-human interface or a face-to-face connect. No matter you're working remotely or hybridly or office first or whatever, we did have these understandings, and therefore, whatever real estate budget you have, it just goes into engagement at the end of the day. And how it goes in is that you then create your layers of frequency of conversations that need to happen for goals or dissemination of activities and things like that. So maybe at a particular time, maybe a team needs to meet once in a month. But the managers of multiple teams who are working on the same goal need to meet, let's say, twice in a month. So you create like the cadence and the frequency of meeting people, which equally means that you're creating zones for collaboration, you're giving comfort for hybrid, and there's no one way or the other to be able to deal with it, but these are just enablers for you to think through how you can make a lot of things happen. So you then shift the focus to saying how you can still keep the connection going, but at the same time, you can give a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom. I think what's also happened is that the boundaries have blurred, in the sense that anybody who's working now in different time zone with our time zone, it becomes very challenging that someone sends a text at 12 in the night and you're compelled to respond to it. That can actually make or break a culture, because at the end of the day, it could be mental well-being, or it could also be that, dude, I don't have the time to even spend with myself. So how do I even spend time with family? And so how do you bring that sort of a well-being into your ecosystem is sort of pausing. Let's say if you're using Slack as your community channel, you pause your messages during the time that you're with family or after work hours or something like that. But if it's a critical one, you could still respond, because you will get messages, but it's not that you can't respond back to them. So, some of those engagement models, if you start to infuse into working ways of working, then probably we could still hold on to some part of that value building.
Thank you. So in the interest of time, I want to give the audience an opportunity to ask some questions. We have just 5 minutes left. So questions from the audience. And hello again to the LinkedIn team, which is streaming live. And as looking at your comment, we have a virtual audience as well. So if you can hear some chats, questions from the virtual audience as well, happy to take them.
Hey folks, quick question. Very nice things. I particularly like one of the
Can you
things that...
speak into a mic? Can't hear.
Yeah, one of the things I liked was infusing innovation with stability, right? That I think Pooja mentioned, Preeti mentioned. My question to the panelist is, how many tools do you currently use? What's the number of tools that effectively can do the job, given a choice? And what's the number beyond that you would probably say is not worth it, right? Or the effort, because each tool has its own implementation cycle, adoption challenges, results. So how many tools is okay? How do you, that you mentioned, balancing, what's that number that you folks work with? How has it changed? And where are you right now?
So I can start and I'll answer, but I'll go back to, and Rohit, it's a good question. That's what Pooja was saying. Your core system is same. Most of the companies are using a Workday or a PeopleSoft, right? It's about what do you do as a plus on top of that particular element. If you do multiple systems, you're going to complicate the model. So there's a separate onboarding system, there is a separate payroll system, there is a separate employee engagement or a benefit system. Doesn't work. You have to look at how do you integrate. Today we are at a place where we are trying to collapse and integrate the life cycle journey for a colleague through different interfaces. We probably will be at, few. Idea is to get to probably less than 2, 3. Again, the best example is Amazon is one, right? 2 clicks or 3 clicks is your order. If colleagues are used to that experience, how do you expect them to log into 10 systems to do their day job? So that's the direction that we are moving towards.
Any other questions from the, yes, the gentleman behind.
Hi. We were talking about our, the suite of technology that we implement for our people, etc. Right? But we talk about agility, we talk about speed of decision making, etc. Right? I think do you feel that there is a certain inertia within the organizations to actually have agility when it comes to implementing newer technology platforms, right? Because what I've seen is, based on my experience, is that once you deploy a certain technology platform or a suite of platforms, there is a lot of inertia in moving on to a new one to suit the, the changing environment, to suit the changing needs of people. Could you comment on that, please?
I think it's a fair point that there will be inertia because technology does not come very cheap. It comes at a cost. So when you sort of put your effort, mind, energy in deploying a technology that comes at a cost, you want to see a certain gestation period of that technology also going through its obsolete stage. And then you want to then acquire a new technology. You could build on innovation if the technology provider constantly is upgrading the tool and giving you the upgrade. So it's like, your software updates are regularly happening. So the pain is relatively reduced, that it's not like stable and there's no upgrade happening for the technology. So there are multiple ways of looking at it. Inertia will definitely come in because it's a lot of mindset shift and mental bandwidth that gets drawn into an organization to change technologies and change behaviors. But I somehow think that if you have bought a technology and you've done the right due diligence, it should last at least a couple of years or more. And if it doesn't, then it's okay to fail fast and move quickly. That's perfectly fine, and I think people in the organization will appreciate a quick reaction to it and to make a change. But if you think that, I want to be a market leader in everything, we're not going to be solving the world hunger. That's the $1 million acceptance we need to have is, are we solving for world hunger or what are we solving for? And how do we then keep bringing newer technologies to solve the problems in the organization?
I think we're almost out of time. I want to check, is there a question from the LinkedIn audience?
Yes, we have one from LinkedIn Live by Shweta Khanna. The question says, how are organizations promoting HR tech advocacy?
How are organizations promoting?
HR tech advocacy.
That's what we were discussing all through the week. What was last? HR tech in organizations.
Advocacy. Yes, yes.
Like how do you promote uptake of that, adoption?
I think that is what we've been discussing for the last 20-30 minutes. But I would just say, how do we do it, right? Understand what are my priority areas. I can't solve the entire problem all at one time, right? So let's identify which are the areas where I need to have some technology solution, prioritize them, And to also take up a point which that gentleman said on agility and transformation, I think any adoption of a technology in an organization will only be successful provided there are 2 points to it. One, people see a lot of benefit by adopting that particular technology, and not only from my perspective as an HR, but more from a business perspective. If the business sees a benefit by adoption of that technology, you will have business leaders as your partners while implementing and ensuring that everyone adheres to that particular technology. The second one is, I think when we go about that change, it always cannot be bottoms up, it has to be top down. So once you are sure that your leaders are ready to adopt that and they see a benefit by adoption of that technology, the work is halfway done. And that is what we do. So 3 areas. One, keep the leadership by your side, that what is the change that I am trying to bring in the organization? How is my organization and my people benefiting from it? And the third one is prioritizing what I need to solve. I can't solve all the things at one single time. So if my prioritization is, let's say if I have to do a performance assessment for my 30,000 workforce, right, versus my hiring, I definitely know that performance assessment is more important for me because I shouldn't be losing the best performers, and hence I will put performance management set up much above the hiring piece. So that's how I will keep building it bits by bits.